Welcome to the Sean Hannity Show.
And thanks, Scott Shannon. As we roll along, Sean Hannity Show on our Newsmaker line. Larry Elder, fellow host, Talk Radio 790 KABC, Los Angeles. Larry, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Sean, thank you for having me.
Well, you know, I really don't take this personally. I hate your guts. I'm jealous. I just despise the fact that you got to interview and battle with Bill Ayers and I didn't. Tell us what happened.
Well, first of all, Sean, you ought not despise me for it, because when you think about it, the probable reason that Ayers agreed to do the interview is that he didn't know who the hell I was.
No, I don't. Well, first of all, I'm only kidding, but secondly,
so it's a left-handed compliment, frankly. Well, my producer called him. Sean, I was talking about the pass that Obama gets for a whole host of things. He campaigned and said, for example, that he and his mom were for a time on food stamps, and the press seemed to be indifferent about confirming or refuting that. This stuff that the 95% of Americans got a tax break, when in fact about 40% or so of working Americans don't pay any federal income taxes. He says that all the time, gets a break. So I was just rattling off all of the double standards and the passes that he got, including the relationship that you pushed, the issue that you pushed regarding his relationship with Bill Ayers. And so my producer just picks up the phone and calls the guy. Yeah. And then next thing you know, he tells me we got him booked. I said, "You've got to be kidding me!" And I said, "He's going to back out as soon as he does his homework and finds out who I am." And to be sure, 15 minutes before the interview, Ayers emails my producer and says, "What does Elder want to talk about?" And so I said, don't lie to him. Tell him that we want to talk about his book, the fact that he apparently is an unrepentant terrorist. I want to find out if he wrote Obama's book, and I want to find out about his relationship with Obama.
You said that you were going to ask all that.
Yeah. So
you figured he was done.
And Ayers said, okay.
Now, you going to send me his private email?
Sure.
I really want to start emailing the guy and see if he'll respond, which will be fun. First of all, I'm not jealous. I'm just kidding. Second of all, I got to give you some praise here, because I thought you really went at him hard. Let me play a little bit of this.
Okay.
This is you pressing him on being an unrepentant terrorist.
What do you think about the fact that I think you're a terrorist? What do you think about the fact that I think you're a degenerate? You're a degenerate who ought to apologize for what you've done. That's what I think.
That's certainly your opinion. That's fine. It doesn't affect me one way or the other. But
obviously not. You live in a country that apparently has forgiven you, allowed you to go to University of Illinois and teach, and work for the very government that you tried to attack in the 70s. It's really quite remarkable. It's quite remarkable that you walk around, your head held high. You tried to attack a police building, the Pentagon, the Capitol. You're not in jail. You never spent any time in jail. It's remarkable.
Who decides who goes to jail? You? You decide who goes to jail. You decide that I deserve to be in jail. How do you get that decision?
Had you not run, Mr. Ayers, you very likely would have gone to jail.
That was just a terrific point. I just think that this guy, it was clear in this interview, he's still not repentant about what he's done.
Not at all. In fact, I asked him, did he regret anything that he'd done, and he said no. And then he began to attack me for the Vietnam War and asked me what I would have done to have stopped it. And I told him I wasn't an opponent of the war, and if I were, I wouldn't have blown up buildings.
Let me play this. I mentioned this earlier in the program, Larry, and I was talking about how hard George Stephanopoulos was going after Trump on the birther issue, and he was almost like a special pleader for the Obama administration's case. And by the way, I'm not a birther. I frankly am amused by the whole thing, right, and the fact that I think it's such a simple act. Go get the birth certificate.
Exactly.
And so I think it's kind of silly. But I think it's important at this point because now there's an oddity to it that is interesting. But anyway, so Stephanopoulos really going after Trump, and I compared it to the one time that anybody ever asked Barack Obama. It was only one time, no follow-up at all, about Bill Ayers. And here's the Stephanopoulos question, which, interestingly, I think I helped provoke because he was on my show the day before, and I asked if he would ask it. Anyway, here's how it went down.
On this issue, general theme of patriotism in your relationships, a gentleman named William Ayers. He was part of the Weather Underground in the 1970s. They bombed the Pentagon, the Capitol, and other buildings. He's never apologized for that. And in fact, on 9/11, he was quoted in the New York Times saying, "I don't regret setting bombs. I feel we didn't do enough." An early organizing meeting for your state Senate campaign was held at his house, and your campaign has said you were friendly. Can you explain that relationship for the voters and explain to Democrats why it won't be a problem?
This is a guy who lives in my neighborhood, who's a professor of English in Chicago. who I know and who I have not received some official endorsement from. He's not somebody who I exchange ideas from on a regular basis. And the notion that somehow, as a consequence of me knowing somebody who engaged in detestable acts 40 years ago when I was 8 years old, somehow reflects on me and my values doesn't make much sense, George. This kind of game in which anybody who I know, regardless of how flimsy the relationship is somehow their ideas could be attributed to me. I think the American people are smarter than that. They're not going to suggest somehow that that is reflective of my views, because it obviously isn't.
You know, Larry, what's amazing, he lives in the neighborhood. He's an English professor. We don't have ideas or share them on a regular basis.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And he once said that he was just a guy in the neighborhood, and there is growing evidence, and I think persuasive evidence, Sean, that Bill Ayers may very well have written Barack Obama's first book or have played a very large role in having written that book, in which case not only has Obama perpetuated a fraud on the American people that he didn't write the book, but it also, of course, shows you what a close relationship Bill Ayers has, which refutes what Obama said when he claimed he was, quote, just a guy in the neighborhood.
Well, you see, this is an interesting thing. I was only 8 years old at the time, but what's amazing to me is, you know, look, if he wants to go after Trump on the birth certificate issue, I don't care. Trump kept saying, I'm not running on this issue. You keep asking me about it. Right. And it was just one small issue. But the interesting thing to me is 7 times in a period of 2 minutes, there was never another question ever asked about this guy that he gave speeches with, sat on boards with, and started his political campaign in his house. Right. What makes you think that Ayers might have contributed to the book?
There's a guy named Jack Cashill. He writes for a website called WorldNetDaily.com, and he's written maybe 3, 4, 5 articles comparing text from Obama's book to text from books that Bill Ayers has written. I've never read a Bill Ayers book, but what I've read are reviews, and apparently he's a very gifted writer. Anyway, this guy argues that the syntax, the phrasing, the use of words is very similar. I've also read that Obama got a book contract to write his first book, got into trouble, was having difficulty getting it together, and that he went over to Bill Ayers' home, and Bill Ayers helped him whip it into shape. Don't know whether it's true or false, Sean, but certainly you think an aggressive, curious media ought to be looking into the allegations, if only to refute it. This is the kind of pass that Obama has gotten, that if a George W. Bush had a book that someone credibly, arguably could have written, other than Bush, the media would have looked into it.
Yeah. What do you think? Why do you think he decided to go on your show?
I think that he didn't know who I was, and then after he agreed to come on...
With all due respect, everybody knows who you are.
Well,
I mean...
Thank you for that. But I don't... The reason I don't think he knew who I was is another reason. During the break, the first break, we did this in 2 segments, Sean, he went off on me to my screener. He called me a stupid MF, except he didn't say MF. And I just don't think he would have done that had he known who I was and what I likely would have asked him. So I think he was surprised at how, as I said on your TV show, we went to DEFCON 5 right away.
Yeah, let me play a little bit more of this interview. And here's the guy in the neighborhood, the professor of English, friend of Barack Obama, as he sat on boards and gave speeches with him, Bill Ayers. Mm-hmm. Here's part of the interview.
Do you regret setting those bombs?
Not at all. And the reason is no one was hurt, no one was killed, property was destroyed. Meanwhile, every week that the war went on, 6,000 people were killed. Weather Underground indeed did take responsibility for a handful, maybe a dozen, extreme acts of vandalism. That's true. That's true.
Oh, pretty telling, isn't it? Larry, you still there? I don't know. I guess we lost Larry Elder in the process. Did we lose Larry in there? What happened? Does anybody know? Larry, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Well, that's pretty telling.
Yeah, and by the way, Sean, I don't want to just dismiss this birther thing out of hand. I'm with you. I believe Barack Obama is from here. But remember the governor of Hawaii, Neil Abercrombie, on Christmas Eve made a big deal. It was a front-page article in the L.A. Times. He's going to get to the bottom of this. I'm the new governor of Hawaii, and this birther issue is hurting Obama and hurting the country. I knew Obama's parents, he said. I know he was born here. And now as governor, I have access to the records. records. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. A couple of weeks later, Abercrombie said, well, you know what? I can't get to the bottom of it. The privacy right is held by Barack Obama. The state of Hawaii has privacy rights. I don't have a, quote, tangible interest, so therefore I can't release the relevant records. Now, the governor is the one who raised the issue and made me think there was something going on. If he couldn't get to the bottom of it, then who can?
Thank you, Larry Elder. I appreciate it. Talk Radio 790 KABC in Los Angeles, 9 to noon. Larry, as always, thanks for being with us.
Thank you. If you want to watch the full interview and hear the full interview, it's on LarryElder.com, Sean.
Yeah, I will. Now, can you shoot me? I'm going to put you on hold here. Can you shoot me over his email?
Sure.
I think I'm going to have a little bit of fun with this.
Okay.
All right, Larry Elder, thanks so much. 800-941-SEAN is our number if you want to be a part of the